Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders. From physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance, we leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, as well as iHeartRadio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Answering the Call, the First Responders podcast. I am Mike Miles, the Podfather, and I'm here with Jersey Ed.
What's up, Podfather?
We have a time delay?
Yeah, the Zoom thing is always a little time delay here, but
I think we just have an Ed delay.
Yeah, that too.
And we got we have our producer extraordinaire, Sweets, on the technology end. Hey,
I like the picture of him. Do you see that? The little
nobody can see that, Ed.
We can't see him today because
you're referencing something our video participants can't actually see. So
that's
right. We'll keep it moving.
Oh, well, what's new? Ed still thinks we're using a satellite.
Yeah, I know.
I'm up here in Chelmsford, Mass. Ed's down there in, where are you, Jerseyville or Phillyville?
Nah, I'm in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, an undisclosed location in a garage.
Yeah,
he's in a hazmat tent because
that's
right.
I had to hide all my folders because I'm in my office out here in Chelmsford, Massachusetts.
Wow, we don't get a chance to see that office. Look at that office.
The Podfather's got quite a nifty office here. I'll tell you. I wish I could give you a virtual tour.
He wish he knew how to use it.
Yeah, exactly. I know. There'll be no microphones or anything fancy for the Podfather. That's for sure. I might get hurt. I might hurt myself.
Well,
How you doing?
You get the studio up there. Good, Podfather. I'm hanging in there. Another day from the garage. I don't mind. My neighbor, look at this. I got a nice chair. See if you guys.
Yeah, it's a beauty. You got it all. Every episode, you end up with something
new. I know. The neighbor just said, he knocked on my door. You want a chair? I'm like, yeah, because he knew I'm sitting in here the whole day. So I said, yeah, I'll take it. So I'm comfortable. If I fall asleep, just wake me up.
Yeah, it's been a nice day today. Beautiful weather. I guess we're gonna get a little snow in a couple of days. Saturday, I guess we're gonna get some snow. And
yeah.
Crazy times going on. But
you okay? You okay there? You were doing some police work before you got in, I heard.
Yes. We had some crime over at my daughter's apartment, and the Lowell police showed up, took a report. Luckily, there was a video of this individual going up the stairs, coming down the stairs with some items. So
wow.
You know who to look for anyway.
Good. Well, she's okay, right?
She's fine. Just a little anxious, and she grew up with me being a police officer, so she knows what to do. And
yeah.
She lives with a few other girls, and of course, when your privacy's been invaded, it's not a good thing.
I tell you what, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, maybe even younger, my house got broken into. My mom and dad's TV got taken. A bunch of. I was even at that age. I was afraid to go home. I didn't want to go. It's scary. It's not a good feeling when when you get robbed. Obviously, they won't come back because they're. I hope they wouldn't come back, but
Well, you never know. Scary. Sometimes they do come back. That's the scary part. But
yeah.
They took some stuff, but anyway, as long as everybody's okay, that's all that matters. But it just came at a time that everything was happening this morning. But we're all set now.
Good. Well, as long as she's safe, and this is
right.
Your younger daughter, right?
That's correct.
Oh God.
Well,
we'll keep her in our prayers, and
Yep. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So what's going on there? What do you got going? You got picks of the week. You have
real quick, I want to just say that just stay tuned for Wayne Miller. He wrote a book called Boston Burn, and he's an ATF agent, a retired ATF agent. We're going to talk to him in a minute or so here, but just stay tuned for that. This is going to be a really good interview, guys. I did my research and I did all my studying for this. And I was texting the Podfather this morning. I'm like, I'm nervous. I hope I get all this right. And so Podfather, you got to help me with all your experience.
Yeah, I got the book. I got the book in the mail last week, and I've been skimming through it. It's a very interesting book.
I got it right here.
I heard a podcast that Wayne was on, and it sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I'm going through it. It's a big book. Look at this, Sweets. I'm reading a big book, Sweets. See that?
Not the same size. Not the same size as the book Harold Waterhouse wrote with Lieutenant Gilligan up here in Lowell. They were our arson investigators. Back in the 70s, Lowell was burning down too. And we had an arson investigator, a lieutenant on the fire department and a patrolman on the police department that worked together and solved a multitude. And then when I was in the cruiser out back in the 80s, we had a guy, we'd call a fire bug. He was lighting houses on fire. And we ended up catching him. He was actually a milkman, and he'd just moved in the neighborhood. And what a record he had! Wow, he had been he had served time for arson. So,
oh God. Well, I'm sure Wayne Miller probably heard of that one before. Maybe
he has.
Yeah. So let's ask him. So I'm gonna. While Sweets is bringing him in, I'm gonna read a really impressive bio here about him. Wayne Miller. Was a special agent, criminal investigator, and certified fire investigator for Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in Boston for 25 years. He has been involved in numerous high-profile illegal firearms bombings and arson cases. As a member of the ATF National Response Team, Mr. Miller responded to several major fires and explosion incidents. During his public and private career, he examined over 2,300 fires and explosion scenes, plus provided expert testimony in numerous federal and state courts. After retiring from the ATF in 2001, Wayne worked privately for 18 years, eventually working fire and explosion scenes in 43 states. Wow. Okay. Mr. Miller has been a member of the International Association of Arson Investigators since 1994. And he's held numerous positions with the Massachusetts chapter of the IAAI. Besides teaching fire investigation as a adjunct professor at Cape Cod Community Colleges for 2 semesters, he has been a speaker on fire-related topics over 80 times throughout the United States and in Canada. Wayne published his book Burn, Boston Burn in August 2019. And that's why we have him on our show to talk about his book. Welcome, Wayne.
You did a pretty good job there.
Thanks. I've been practicing it.
I'm tired just from listening.
How you doing, Wayne?
Wayne, welcome. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. I'm in a good position.
Good. Well, your book I got last week, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't make it through it. So, so we're going to turn the show over to you. You just tell us about the book front and back and we're done. Just kidding. No.
A couple things. Mike and I do know some of the same people.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Talk about that. Yeah.
I knew Harold Waterhouse.
Sure. I bet you did.
With him. Barry Gannon. Mike, do you know Barry Gannon?
Great guy.
Lowell Fire Department.
Yep.
Investigator. Been a friend of mine for about 25 years.
Sure. There's a fire station named after his dad up here in Lowell. Right.
I knew he was a student. That's correct.
Yes.
So I listened to a couple of your podcasts the past few days, guys. I really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I like you guys talking to the Providence. I grew up in Rhode Island, so
oh wow.
When you talk to the Providence investigator,
Anthony,
firefighter,
yep,
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And yeah, the book's been going great.
Good.
And I mean, I had 34 speaking events before this pandemic, and everything's been canceled. Obviously, 14 of them been canceled so far, and I still have more for the second half of the year. It's been a lot of fun. I just happened to be in the right place and was assigned this case back in 1982. And Boston formed an arson group in 1982, the ATF Task Force. It just happened to coincidentally coincide with these guys setting their very first fire of 264.
Oh my God.
I mean, within 2 weeks, we formed our group, but we didn't know them. They didn't know us. So it worked out very well.
It's a crazy story, Wayne. What I'm reading now, I'm like, is this real? I mean, and then I heard some podcasts and I read some snippets of news here and there, and it's like it's like you wrote a fiction book. That's what it's like. But you lived all this stuff in this book. You lived. It's amazing. So what we're talking about is Burn, Boston Burn book. The we have the author Wayne Miller on. Tell us a little bit how all this started. I know, I know it started probably because of Prop 2.5 is how it all started, I guess, and there was some backlash on that, and give us your version of that.
Sure. 8 gentlemen joined together as friends. They became friends because they were fire buffs. Sparks is a nickname. Yeah. And they used to meet around the Boston area. And these guys used to meet at a Howard Johnson's right across from Boston Fire headquarters. And that's how they got to know each other to begin with. Fire buffs like to collect memorabilia, like to take photographs, run to some fires. And when Proposition 2.5 happened here in Massachusetts, a tax cutting measure, fire, police, and school teachers all lost their jobs. Boston Fire lost 600 firefighter positions out of 1,700.
Wow. I remember.
That's more than a third. And this particular group of guys became militant, like terrorists. They said the only way we were going to be able to help our brothers in the fire department and police department is by setting fires, to get the citizens to scream and get them to get the press to pick up on it. And then finally, Kevin White, who was mayor in Boston at the time, to rehire people, not use firefighters and police and teachers as pawns, political pawns. So these guys set their very first fire February 18th, 1982. And our arson group was formed the first week of March.
Oh my God! Wow.
Hey, Wayne. I also thumbed through your book, and it's really interesting. I can't wait to sit and read it. Hopefully I'm going to bring it up to Maine this summer. Hey, were there any deaths, Wayne?
Yeah.
Any fatalities as a result of those fires?
It's amazing. There was not a one. They had over 200 firefighters injured. They started picking abandoned triple deckers. Right. Massachusetts has so many triple deckers.
Sure.
They started with the abandoned ones to try to minimize any injuries to people. But, when you have fires, you're going to have firefighters get hurt eventually. And then they graduated to Sparrow Toy Company, happened on June 3rd, 1982. That was a 1,000-foot-long warehouse.
I remember that.
Wow.
We start setting commercial in Lowell. They set 4 in one night, and some of them were your big warehouses also.
Absolutely, I remember. Yep.
You're going to have firefighters hurt, and some of them were devastated. I mean, they fell through the roof at one fire, and they broke their backs and legs and got burns. By the grace of God, nobody died.
Right. I've been to some pretty bad fires. Actually, I have a couple of awards from the 80s. You happen to be at the right place at the right time. But I was at a multi-dwelling blaze one night, and my first big fire as a cop. And the officer I was with was a seasoned veteran. He told me to grab his belt and just stay low, and we're going up. We had to go clear the hallways. We were the first ones off. The fire department was 2 minutes behind us. And of course, the smoke was, knee level. We crawled up the stairs. I've never been in a fire. I'd never been in anything like this. Kicking in doors from our back, and we got people out. But my point is, I learned that night how dangerous a fire could be, not even being near the flames, but just the smoke. And I have been to some mill fires that were just incredible. We didn't have cell phones back then with cameras or anything. You wouldn't even think of taking a picture because you were so busy. But I often think, even looking through your book, I was wondering, talk about a blessing, right? Nobody dying, but I'm sure all those injuries, 200, you said?
200 plus firefighters.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Crazy. Now, Wayne, I was reading in the book that they, like you said, they targeted abandoned buildings and they targeted where people wouldn't get hurt. So just to send a signal, a message across. But going into the thoughts and the minds of these guys, they're serial arsonists, obviously, correct? That's what you would call them.
Yeah, they were definitely serial arsonists.
Yeah, and is this like kind of like the serial killer thinking, like they just do this for pleasure, and they do it for, because I have a really good friend, John Kelly, who studies serial killers and serial arsonists and I know him very well. Sounds like it goes hand in hand with the serial killers. Their families probably didn't know about it. Their friends probably didn't know about it. They probably kept it a secret, just like an addiction, would be my guess, right?
Well, they did. Imagine 8 guys joining together to do this and set these fires for a 2-year period. I've worked a lot of individuals, serial arson case, just one sole person setting 20 or 30 fires. But in this case, you had 8 guys. Originally, the motive was Proposition 2.5 to get the people rehired, that type of thing. But it became nightly entertainment, and they were definitely addicted, adrenaline junkies. They loved it. They loved the press. They loved their friends talking about the fires all the time.
Hey, Wayne, we're going to be taking a break in a moment, but I'm wondering, and you can wait till after the break. You can answer these, but obviously there was some arrest. Did everybody cave in on each other, or was there anyone that got away with it? And the third question we'll be asking after the break is, how many people actually did time in jail? So when we come back from our break, answering the call, First Responders Podcast, you can answer those questions. Thank you. We'll be back answering the call.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Answering the call, First Responders Podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and I'm here with
Jersey Ed in his quarantine land. And I'd like to thank my neighbor again for this comfortable chair that I'm sitting in. And also our great guest, Wayne Miller, the author of Burn, Boston Burn. And we'll get back to him in a minute. But I heard him on National Fire Radio podcast. And so my podcast pick of the week, it's time for Jersey Ed's podcast pick of the week. Give me a drum roll, sweet. Thank you. Is National Fire Radio podcast. Host Jeremy Donch and Rob Riley. National Fire Radio sets out to capture the many different types of characters and their stories that shape and mold traditions and culture of the fire service. Join Jeremy and Rob as they set out to document those stand-up individuals that help pass on the history that defines what the fire service is all about. You can find National Fire Radio podcast anywhere you get your podcasts from. And that's why I think Wayne and I think he suggested that to me, and it's a really good podcast. Other thing, guys, if you have any questions for Wayne, if you want to email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com or give us a call at 617-379-1163. We'll make sure we get all those questions out to Wayne, how you can get his book. That'll be on the show notes also. But Wayne, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah,
Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah. Quite a collection of books you got back there.
I have 1,000 hardcover library.
Oh my God! Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow. And again, this is what we're talking about, guys. Is Burn, Boston Burn is Wayne's book he just wrote, and we've been interviewing him on the book. And Podfather had a couple questions before we took a break.
Yes. Hey, Wayne, thanks for being on the show and the podcast. And I'll tell you, this is good stuff. Yeah, being in police officer or firemen, we work so closely together, but I don't think we're as close as most people would think we are. We're two different cultures, same personality types and all. But I think most firemen, to me, they seem to have other interests. Like they might have other jobs. They seem more polished, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Over the years, what I saw anyway. But I was looking through your book, and I could see that right away. You've really captured the essence of firemen, and these guys that were that were setting the fires. These 8, I guess, criminals. Yeah, definitely. But it looks like their intent was to help. It didn't look like they weren't doing this for money, arson for money, which I'm sure you've seen plenty of, the ATF. But I guess my questions before the break were, did anyone turn? Did one turn on the other? Did they go to jail? Did any of them do time?
Yeah,
sure, Mike. It really interesting is we got a first break in November of 1982 at a major lumberyard fire when TV cameraman from WBZ in Boston filmed these guys. Now they're sitting on a lumber pile watching these fires, and this was common occurrence,
right.
Not just these 4 or 5, but fire buffs from all over were chasing these fires.
The fire buffs are called sparks, right? Is that what you guys call them
Sparkies.
up there?
Yeah.
Sparks.
Yeah,
Okay.
sparks. The true fire buffs don't like to be called Sparkies because they're Arson,
Right.
But when we first interviewed the Boston cop who was involved with this, Bobby Grabowski, we interviewed him at his apartment, and there was a stolen firebox in his apartment.
Oh boy!
So initially, we immediately got a search warrant, and he got charged with receiving stolen property. Not a big deal, but he didn't roll. He actually took a polygraph with an attorney present and failed it miserably.
Wow!
That was the beginning of December 1982.
Wow!
We did not make an arrest until January 1984.
Wow!
14 months down the road.
Wow!
Because we just couldn't get the evidence.
But these guys must have been like looking over their shoulders every moment of the day because they knew you were on to them, right? They knew. I mean, I read that the firebox was in his apartment, and there happened to be a bunch of fireboxes missing along the way of all these fires. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. You can imagine, though, we come back the second day after his interview, and the firebox is still sitting in the same spot.
Unbelievable.
Like,
he didn't worry about us. We got no respect,
Yeah.
No respect.
Like Rodney. Hey.
What was his excuse from a public property laying in his apartment? Like, what do you say?
I got it at a flea market.
Yeah,
got it
at a flea market. I mean, hey Wayne, that's what you'd call a trophy, right? I mean, in a sense.
Exactly. There's no doubt about it. They got 14 of them eventually.
Oh my God!
But during 1983, I actually did develop another police officer from Boston Housing as a source of information. He was giving me just tidbits, just keeping me hanging on. He never told me that he was actually involved with setting the fires. But he gave me enough information that we recovered a brand new unmarked cruiser that was stolen out of Natick Ford parking lot.
Really?
And they stole it to take parts off it, put it on their own personal cruisers, driving around in their black LTDs with the whip antennas and the black walls and everything. They look just like any unmarked cruiser. And that's how they could get away with it a lot, too, because they're riding through these neighborhoods in the middle of the night. They took this cruiser, took their parts, and then dumped it in a 4-point channel.
Really?
And this source of information gave me the info that it was dumped, and we got the dive team and recovered it. Because of that, we re-interviewed Robert Grabowski at Boston Police Headquarters, and after a good interview technique done by a former Danvers police officer, then ATF agent, he got Bobby to drop his head, pause, and say, "What do you want to know?"
Wow.
Bobby was the first one in the door. And in a matter of just an hour or so, he gave us 29 fires.
Wow.
My stomach was turning over. My head was
Oh my
I was,
God.
I couldn't believe
You
it.
hit
I
the
was there.
jackpot. Wayne, was there like a season? I don't mean a season, but was there a season for these guys when they did start these fires? Was there a specific time or not what time, obviously at night, but was there a specific day of the month, or did they kind of focus on a specific season, as I call it?
Well, they ramped up during the spring and summer of '82. I mean, they were setting 40 fires in a month,
Jeez.
up to 7 fires a night
Oh my
sometimes.
God.
And they started doing a lot of them on Thursday night, they became called the Friday night firebug, actually, because so many of them happened early Friday morning. And they broke away from that pattern after a while. Once our surveillances were on the streets with Boston Arson Squad and Boston Police, you got to realize that the first 100 fires or so were in Boston before they started branching out. And they went south of Boston, Quincy and Norwood. They went in Canton. Then they went north and they did Chelsea, Everett, Lowell, Lawrence. And then they went way out west, 40 miles from the city, Fitchburg. 4 major
Wow.
fires
Oh
in
my
one night.
God. Was there
Boy, so much effort.
yeah, I know. Was there a when you know with this ring, was there a specific way they started these fires? Did they run in there, throw a gasoline and how did they do this? Because I mean, you can't just stand there and light a match and try to start something on fire and and hope it goes. I mean, there had to be some kind of vehicle that they used to start these fires.
They had this simple incendiary device that Greg Bemis. Greg was a call firefighter. He was a dispatcher for Stowe Police and Fire, and then he became a Boston Housing Authority police
Jesus.
officer during this 2-year period. But Greg had learned in a fire academy that he had gone to a simple device, brown paper bag. Now, I'm not telling any secrets because it's court records, it's in the book, and on the internet today, you can figure out how to set anything.
Build an atom bomb on an internet.
Right. A simple brown paper bag, your lunch bag, and inside is a Ziploc baggie with Coleman lantern fuel, some tissue on top, and then you put your matchbook with a lit cigarette interlaced between the matches to give you a little time delay. And you place this device up against what we call gas shingles. In New England, again, we had a lot of houses built in the 40s or so that had asphalt shingles, which is basically solid gasoline. And you place the device there, and once the fuel gets going, it races up a triple decker right up the siding in a matter of minutes. And they also went inside and they placed it all in the combustible materials inside.
Wow,
That's crazy.
I had gone to some pretty bad fires over the years, and there was a fire on Decatur Street in Lowell, where these 5 family members, some young children, were burnt to death, and there was some arrests made and everything. And I think it was a Molotov cocktail. But talking to Harold Waterhouse over the years, who's still alive, 93 years old, wealth of knowledge, sharp as a tack, it was almost like when you talk to him, it was a history lesson, but he's just a wealth of knowledge, things that even as a cop you wouldn't even think of. He always, and one of the pieces of advice he gave me was watch the crowd, because we had a lot of fires in my neighborhood that I was working in. And he said, you're going to find somebody who's going to be at the same fire once or twice. And there were 2 people, and one of them actually owned a funeral home that I reported. I wrote a report, and I said, I'm concerned about these 2 people because they're always there. And one of them, it wasn't the man who owns the funeral home, but it was the second man who was actually he worked for a dairy. He was a milkman, and but I learned so much. And then Harold's got a small book out too that's very interesting too. But did these guys do time, Wayne?
Oh, absolutely. Eventually, there were 9 guys total because the 9th one actually was asked to house Robert Gablewski, who faked that he was going to run instead of going to prison. So one of the other co-conspirators called a friend of his out in Ohio and said, hey, can you take care of Bobby? You remember Bobby, he's a good friend of ours. And he joined the conspiracy by saying yes, he would do it, and they planned to do it. So out of 9 guys, 8 of them went to prison, including that last co-conspirator. Wow. Only one, a kid who joined the Air Force after the first 2 fires were set.
Oh, really?
He did not set fire out. He sat in the car while the fire set. Wow. He went in the Air Force to become a firefighter, so he could once he got out, he could get back on a real job. You know? And he got probation. He's the only one. We got sentences 4 or 5 years for some of the minor characters. The Boston firefighter, full-time firefighter, did not set any fires. He got a 4 to 6 year sentence. Bluesky, the first one in the door, got a 12-year sentence. Greg Bemis, the one who was present at over 260 of these fires, he was the second one in the door. He testified magnificently. You know, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better bad guy. Right. He knew everything. Yeah. He never got shaken on the stand. He actually signed the agreement for 30 years. Yeah. Prison. But the federal guidelines, you could get out after 10, and he got out. One guy got 40 years, but he got out after 22.
Wow. He did 22 years. Wow.
Talk about Greg Bemis, because you were assigned him. You made the arrest. You arrested him, correct?
I did. Yeah.
And he kind of became your job to get prosecuted, and then he ended up testifying perfectly, like you said. But talk about a little bit after that, because apparently you guys became friends afterwards, after you got out of jail or something. Yeah. I was like, this is a fucking crazy story. So talk about, the Greg Bemis part.
You know, this life is strange. And you mentioned way back that it sounds like fiction sometimes. Well, that's because I spent 200 to 400 hours with Greg after his arrest, once he decided to come along on our side, and prepping him, debriefing him, prepping him for trial. So we became friendly way back then. And he used to send Christmas cards to guys in the office and that type of thing. And Greg, when he went to prison, he wrote a 166 single-space type journal about the fire. So the dialogue you read in the book is true dialogue.
That's yeah, I saw that. that.
And afterwards, when I started writing the book, I tried locating Greg, who has a different last name now, but I didn't actually locate him. And I put my number on the website, and he called me up.
Wow.
Okay. So now I have another relationship with Greg Bemis. I have met with him several times. He has given me additional information before the final book came out.
Wow.
And when I do my speaking engagements, he has actually given me more information that I can use now.
Wow. Is he remorseful that all this took place? Is he sorry he did all this? Because I think he's about 22 years old, I think it said in the book, when all this took place, correct?
Yeah, he just turned 59 this past fall.
Okay.
Yeah, he was young. It's a very strange thing still. I mean, Greg takes credit for a couple things. These guys believe that the Traeger bill, which actually helped, they got passed by the state to give money back to help rehire people. They believe that the Traeger bill got passed because they set these fires. And he burned our state fire academy.
I don't mean to laugh, but this is it's amazing stuff.
You know? Crazy.
We have a brand new fire academy that Greg takes credit for.
Wow.
I recommend you guys look at Chronicle. It was on WCVB TV here in Boston, Channel 5. Chronicle twice aired the episode that they did on this story. Full half hour they did on TV on this story, on this book.
Wow.
And we got Greg to submit responses to email questions.
Wow.
And you'll really get a good feeling of what Greg is all about by listening to that.
Yeah,
response.
we'll have to take a look at it.
And it just got nominated for a New England Emmy, by the way.
Cool.
Really?
Yeah.
That episode got nominated for an Emmy.
We'll put that up on the website. We're gonna have to wrap it down here, but a couple things. This consumed a big part of your life. I want to know, as personally, how did you take this home with you? Because I know Podfather, he's a police officer. I know you guys say you don't bring this shit home with you, but you do. I mean, how much did this consume you? Because you're talking 7 fires a night sometimes, almost every night going on. I mean, it had to consume you as as an agent to I got to get this guy, or what talk a little bit about the personal part of your life, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. I got married in '79 the first time in my life. And this case started in '82 to '85. It took 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day for 2 years, 3 years. It definitely took away from my married life. I had a daughter in '82 and another, daughter in '81 and daughter in '82. It took away from a lot of time for my little girl at the time. And I eventually got divorced.
Oh.
And part of it is what you bring home. And I got pneumonia because of that case, type of thing. It really was a long time in coming and trying to get this case to a successful conclusion.
Wow. But you finally did, and your life is back on track, and you have a lot of accomplishments. I'm going to ask you a favor here before we go, okay? And I'll pay for the books. Sure. I want to give away 3 books, if that's okay, to 3 of our listeners who email us or call us. Email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com or call us at 617-379-1163. I love to give away 3 books, if that's okay. Is that fair? Is that good?
Oh, absolutely.
Great, good,
absolutely.
Good. So, so when you guys hear this, just give a call or send an email. You got to buy this book, guys. It's just, I'm not even a quarter way through it. It's just an amazing book. It really is. So, Wayne, anything you want to add to this before we close? Any book signings or anything going on? I mean, obviously not right now, but anything you want to add to this before we close?
A couple of quick things. You mentioned your pick of the week the other day, James Gearing, Behind the Shield. He's actually put it on today, the podcast I did with him. It's actually up right as we speak.
Good.
And that's another good one. I donate to fire victim charities. When I became profitable earlier this year, I have now submitted to burn victims.
Wow.
Personally, to organizations that have that treat firefighters, burn victims, that type of thing. So, any purchases now, half of my profits go towards those charities.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
Hey, Agent Miller, I just want to say, what a career you've led. And I think a lot of people go through a career as agents or cops or firemen, and they see their share of stuff, but boy, talk about being right in the mix and following it through, and then having all this pertinent, unbelievable information, and then to be able to write a book. You must be really pleased. I'm sure you, like you said, you've been through some rough times too, but man, I'll tell you, what a wealth of knowledge. What a great guest you've been. I just want to tell you, I can't wait to sit and take my time and read that book, and I look forward to meeting you someday, Wayne.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have you back up in the studio when all this clears up, and we'll all get to meet, and we'll interview a little bit more, because we could keep going on and on and on about this, and we gotta wrap it up here. Wayne Miller, author, ATF agent, dad, husband, not wife, but husband, all around wonderful human being. This book is amazing. And Wayne, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of people, and especially knowing this book is part of this is going to a specific charity of yours. That is wonderful. So
it's been my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having
me.
Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks. So, Podfather, thanks. So does that inspire you to write your book, Podfather?
Yeah, we got to get this. Before I take that dirt nap, I'd like to get this book written. So yeah, it's time. I've been doing a little bit of work actually for the last 3 weeks. Every day I do a little bit, kind of polishing up a few things and adding a few things that I think are pertinent. Now, I started writing this book when I was 4 years sober. So I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. Miles of hope, but yeah, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done with the help of,
and this is a huge inspiration here. I mean, this book is unbelievable. I mean, the little bit that you read already, Podfather, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it?
What's amazing is the knowledge he has of these fires, the people that were involved. I mean, this is a movie. This is You know, when you think of the firefighters this state has lost, like Worcester, a city like Worcester, they've lost, I'd say, a dozen firefighters in the last 25 years, maybe more, but at least a dozen. You know, I've known firefighters in Lowell that have, you know, died of heart attacks and other things. You know, I bet there's some raging fires where, I'll tell you, these guys are suiting up and running in, and this is before they had the Scott Air Pack at the convenience, you know, and as a tool. But yeah, I definitely, I think it's an incredible book. But what's even better is this guy's alive. He looks healthy as a horse, and he's just a knowledgeable, personable guy.
I know. He's so smart too. That I mean, when you read this book, it's detailed. It's not I mean, there's detail. There's conversation between everybody. There's
a lot of specifics right from the beginning. That's what catches your eye. Yeah,
I know. He has such a sharp mind to put this in writing. And this is what, 30 years later or whatever it is. Unbelievable.
Well, what's good about it, there's no speculation. It's all factual, and that to me is just amazing. I mean, what we're looking at, and you know, I know the media probably covered it. Of course, back in the early 80s, I wasn't the same guy I am today. You know, I had my other interests back then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Sweets, you've been quiet back there, and you're not setting any fires, are you, while we're speaking?
No, just quietly listening, my friend.
What did you think of all this? I mean, has to be fascinating from me being a civilian. What about you? I mean, you know.
Well, I'm also a civilian, and I would have to agree with the Podfather that, you know, stuff like that's a movie. You know, that this is real life has a tendency to show us things that, you know, even the creative mind can't create. You know, like that most of the stuff that we see was based on, you know, an example of what someone else could do. And I mean, it's always it's crazy to see what people are capable of and the motives behind it. And, you know, I haven't read this book, but just hearing about it, it does sound like exactly like something I would want to watch, not because I condone it, but because it would be interesting to see how it was put together, and to see how it played out and to see how people were responding to it. And I think it's, you know, as someone who has written a book, it is hard to go back and make sure that your memory is correct and that these are on facts and, you know, that you don't speculate. So, you know, it sounds like this was a really well-written book and our listeners should grab it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love what Wayne said about when they interviewed one of the first guys. He has a firebox memorabilia, you know, fire memorabilia in his house. Not only the first time, but the second interview. I mean, you know, you would say, what a friggin' mope, what an idiot. But some people just think they're smarter than the average bear. And, you know, that was his trophy, and he was proud of that. And that's just the craziest part of this.
I know. The whole book is crazy. You know, it's just, I don't know. I just can't say enough about the book. I am really excited to read the rest of it. And guys, listen, we're going to give away 3 books from Answering the Call, the First Responders Podcast. So please email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com or call us at 617-379-1163 and you know, give us a call and make, you know, just we're going to get these books out. And if you don't win the book, please buy the book. Go to Wayne's website, and that'll all be in the show notes. And Podfather, you want to take us out?
Well, you know what, it's been a great show as usual, Eddie. You don't get enough credit for some of the guests you do get, and this is a great guest. I'm telling you.
I think this is one of our best guests, no doubt about it, man.
Absolutely. You know,
he's coming back on. He's definitely coming back on.
Yeah, and when we had Tony on from Providence, I mean, this is good stuff. Not because I was, you know, a cop or whatever, just as a taxpayer and a civilian. You know, this is interesting stuff. You never know who you're living next door to. That's for sure.
That's true.
So hey, Friends in Recovery, correction. I'm very sorry. This is Answering the Call, First Responders Podcast, and it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And thanks, guys. Everybody stay safe out there.
Yeah, stay safe.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for sponsoring the show and supporting first responders who are struggling with addiction and mental health. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.